Okay, so the first person who is approaching the microphone is Mr. Sachs.
Hello.
Sure the mic's on, I don't think it works.
Josh, would you make sure that microphone is working?
I was just thinking that.
Hi.
Name and address, please, just for the
John
record.
Sachs, Precinct 7, town meeting member, and as I've mentioned before, member of the Master Plan Steering Committee, where I've sat with Bob and reported on Mary Cummings Park many times. So when he says there's no idea who to talk to about Mary Cummings Park, I don't think that's really accurate. There's a lot to say here. I've got some visuals. I'd like to go through them very quickly. This is a picture of the area. It's an incredibly densely populated area with the mall and the highway, and the only piece of green space is Mary Cummings Park, one of two in Burlington. It's very precious, very unknown for historical reasons. In the middle, accident of history, the Air Force Base is Northeastern. I think there's a lot of issues on the table. One of them is the fact that Northeastern intends to build the center of the park to the same density as we have around it. They've already said they want to put up the two huge buildings, and when asked if they're going to put up more, they said absolutely yes. So that's an issue. I think one of the big things that we're wrestling right now is you guys on the board are trying to come up with ways to mitigate this, and my feeling is that the problem is that the planning on this started 3 years ago, and it was presented to the town as a fait accompli. This is how it's going to be. We cannot change it. It was done largely in secret and foisted on us, and it leaves us, the citizens, or in my case, Friends of the Mary Cummings Park board member, in the very unfortunate position of being obstructionists and saying, and being troublemakers. And I really hate that. I mean, I really detest being the guy who comes up here and takes millions of dollars of effort that you guys have put in and trashes it. Makes me look like a jerk. But you know, if we cause you millions of dollars of delay because you have to delay this project, or you have to change it, it's not my fault, or their fault, or their fault. It's your fault for not bringing us into the process sooner. And I'm going to show you a picture. I'm taking this out of order. This is a meeting that took place Tuesday night that I attended and spoke at in a town called Nahant. Why do I bring this up? Why is this relevant? Because the entire town of Nahant is up in arms, citizenry and government, to try to stop a major development by Northeastern in Nahant. They have a little piece of land they got from the government, and everybody's been very happy with it. They love having Northeastern's Marine Biological Research Station there. But suddenly, in secret, after 3 years of planning that the town never heard about, they are presented with, this is what we're going to do. And by the way, that building, which the town strongly feels, to the last person, selectmen, planning board, everybody, every citizen, is out of scale with that town. It's 60,000 square feet. This is 103,000 square feet plus the drone. Look at all those people. Now I ask you, why can you turn out 400 people in Nahant and we have less than 100 here? And I'll tell you why. Because Mary Cummings Park is virtually unknown. To some extent, I would say that as probably the most active board member of the Friends of Mary Cummings Park, I have kind of failed in our mission. We cleared the trails. We put up trail signs. We have had monthly nature walks for years now to try to raise people's awareness of this park. But don't forget, Boston had it hosted no trespassing for 30 years. So nobody knows about it. Yes. Well, I have more pictures. I would say to you that if the timing was a little different, and I'm not necessarily accusing you of this as the reason for the rushing, but I do feel that you're rushing the town into something that the town does not want. In Nahant, it's particularly gross, and I will tell you, if anybody has any connections, you're going to lose in Nahant. You are absolutely going to lose. That town, there are people willing to block the driveway in Nahant. I'm not willing to block the driveway here. In fact, I don't think you're going to destroy the park. You're just going to put a really big building in an unfortunate place. that's going to be there for the next 100 years and spoil that part of the park for all future generations. That's bad. And I don't like to be an obstructionist and get up here and say nasty things and cast aspersions on my good friend Barbara, this architect who's worked very hard. But it's wrong. What you're doing is wrong. Now, when you're in that building, in the lab side, you're going to look out on Mary Cummings Park. Now that's sumac, the pretty red stuff, because the field is slowly being taken over and turned into a forest. But it's very pretty. Supposing you were in the field looking back at the building. I flew balloons. I went up there and flew balloons, hard, like the man said, because the wind blows them to the side. My best guess is that this is what it's going to look like. Okay? This is what it's going to look like. And it's very close to your drawing as well. Maybe I have it a little bit too high. It depends on how close. If you're at the very bottom of the field, you won't see the building. That's true. I know that. Let me say something else. I had all this stuff worked out, but, oh, this is a little point. Did you guys know that that orange area, this got this from the Mass GIS map, it is called Biomap Core Habitat Species of Conservation Concern, and it's right up to your building. So when you guys go to plant trees in there, you're going to be bulldozing an area to plant trees that's already had the state declare it area of conservation concern. Are you aware of that? Does anybody from Northeastern know about this? Did you check it? You should check it. I need a good, we may need a lawyer. Bob, can you recommend? Never mind. I need somebody really smart who knows Burlington and knows the law.
But John, I will tell you that, we did know that. That's why we say if we do any plantings, it's subject to...
It's going to be very difficult, I know.
No, that...
One
no,
of the
it's
things
not.
I've been asking myself is, I have been told from different directions that it doesn't matter what happens here tonight, that this is going to go through anyway. Okay? That's what I've been told.
By who?
Let's leave that aside. People who know, people in the know have told
They
me.
know more than your planning board.
Well, in any case, so I'm saying to myself, if it's going to go through, well, maybe I can get a row of trees. But the main thing is, I want people to know, Northeastern, and anybody that's listening, that you cannot mess with this park because nobody cares, because people do care. And I will tell you this, when the trustees finally sign an agreement, why are they not here tonight? Because they don't have a signed agreement. They have no standing. All right, well, we're going to hear from David. He can say what he wishes. Now, David's in a political position, right? He has to be careful what he says because the trustees are trying to negotiate something. I don't have to be careful what I say. It just has to be true, okay? Now, let me say something. All this talk about where the HVAC is, why is it in the back? It's in the back because it's ugly, and you don't want it in the front where people are gathering. I think you know that, and I know that. It's in the back because it's ugly, and because it's noisy. And it's going to take people who walk in the park, and they're going to hear it and see it. That's why it's in the back. You can call it the quiet side, but it's the blank side. It looks like every other boring office park in town, and it's basically shoving your butt in the face. If you think I'm exaggerating, let me show you something. See this? I apologize for two pieces of tape together, but our budget for graphics at Friends of Mary Cummings Park is somewhat less than Northeastern's. What I'd like to point out here is that this is the trail right now that comes to Mary Cummings Park. I know this because I put flyers that we design and print in the holder there every week. And every week I go up there in the summer and get a lawnmower and mow all these trails so people can walk without getting ticks. You know what's in this corner of the building? The loading zone and the dumpsters. Am I right? The dumpsters are with the loading zone? So when you walk out of the park, if they don't give us a new entrance, you're walking right into the garbage. So don't tell me that it's the quiet side, it's the back side. You've put the garbage facing the park. You know, I don't want to hear any more about any of it. Now, one more thing I would like to point out. I took this picture a few years ago, family park at Northeastern, which for some decades, is this the right picture? People have been parking at and walking in the park. Now I have a question, but you know and I know that you're going to see those buildings behind those. This is one of the most beautiful vistas in this town. I keep forgetting something that I want to come back and say, okay, David may talk about this. Will you give the trustees about 5 years to get their mitts on this place, an abandoned place, which is still very beautiful in spite of the fact that Boston has done everything they could to destroy it? Did you know that there was a mansion there, the most beautiful mansion in town, and it burned to the ground because Boston paid no attention? And then there was a beautiful barn that they tore down instead of taking care of it? So so the trustees are going to come in and they're going to undo years of neglect, but it's going to take them a long time. Now the trustees, unlike the Friends of Mary Cummings Park, which are 3 or 4 troublemakers, have a huge organization of outreach. They're going to turn the park into something even more beautiful than it is today. And then, because it's the closest one to Boston, it will become a very widely beloved park. Maybe not Crane's Beach, but it's closer to Boston. The potential here is unbelievable. One of the few parks that has meadows, open meadows, which are very special, butterflies and so on, and milkweed. And it has wetlands and it has forests. The only thing we don't have is a lake. We're trying to buy a lake, but they're very expensive. So, not that many people are here like Nahant because it's not known. But after they make it known, with their level of publicity and their level of love and care, that park will be the absolute jewel. And people will go there, and they'll look at this and they'll say, it's true, it's one of the most beautiful spots in town. Why did they let them build those freaking buildings behind that row of maple trees? Okay? If this was 5 years down the road, you would not have the nerve to put that building on the edge of their park. Or if you did, and let me tell you something else. If you had come to us 3 years ago, and Bob knew who to talk to because at every planning meeting, steering committee meeting, I talked about Mary Cummings Park and the work we're doing there. He knew who to talk to, but he didn't want to because we would cause trouble. Well, I'm causing trouble tonight, and it may be too late. But what do you want me to do? To walk away and say, oh, all right, go ahead, trash the park. I don't care. I do care. Not just for me, but for all future generations. That building is going to be there. The freaking drone thing could come down because it's just pipes. But that building's there for 100 years minimally. Look at that. Look at that, the most beautiful spot in many ways in Burlington. And you're going to put a building that can be seen. Oh, can't be seen. What about in the winter? Recent ice storm, I took this picture. The park is not just a summer thing. 6 months the leaves are off. Very beautiful spot. So I would say to you, it's just, if you force this through, and I believe that you can, you might be able to, before the trustees have a chance to turn it into one of the great jewels and really elevate the park and elevate Burlington and elevate future generations, you're going to take one of the 2 open meadows left in all of Burlington and put a huge building with its butt facing toward it. And don't kid me about the quiet side. If it was just the quiet side, that's not where the dumpsters would be. Did you realize that the trail from the park is going right to your dumpsters? Was that in your mind? Did you know that? I'm asking.
I've been to your kiosk and I have one of your maps, yes.
So you knew that the only trail access currently goes right to your dumpsters. How did you feel about that as an architect?
The area that you referred to is screened in 2 directions. So the pad-mounted equipment that you pointed out south of the service area is architecturally screened, and then the building to the north of it also screens the loading dock area. So when a truck is parked in that area, it's actually between the 2 and visually obscured.
Would you not say that the loading zone and dumpster area would be by any means the most unattractive area in the park, and it is currently the only place that you get in? Now, I have a couple specific questions. On the assumption that this thing may or may not get rammed through, if you guys had talked to us 3 years ago, I would have said, go ahead, build everything. Just move it a little bit away from the park. That's all we want. Just move it away from the park. That's all you have to do.
Don't shout, please.
That's all you have to do. Just move it away from the park.
You don't have to whisper, but you don't have to shout.
All right, now, I get a little emotional. I spend every weekend on that park. And it's not for me. There are plenty of people that I meet up there all the time that thank us for putting up the road signs. Like the old man with his little dog, he said, "Till you put up the trail signs, I was afraid to come in here." But we put up the trail signs, and his little dog, he brings them from the old age home because it's a park. As far as traffic goes,
Hang on, traffic has not come up yet.
Architecture? All right. I have some notes here. Basically, it's all been covered. It is true that you put the buildings where it was already paved, and that's a good thing, but they're also at the very highest point of land. That drone cage is visible from almost every part of the park already. And by the way, folks, the drone cage is pretty much done. The netting went up today, right? Sherry, you saw it? So the drone cage is pretty much done. And so it's going to be one of those things where people go, "Oh, what's that?" But then 103,000 square foot, 69-foot tall office building is going up right next to it with the HVAC pointing toward the park. Specifics, okay. We haven't heard what's going to happen with direct, let's assume it goes through as is. If you guys have the, whatever it takes to really take a look and do this the way it should have been done, I would work 40 hours a week for free with you to make it happen. But let's assume for the moment that you are able to ramrod it through some legal means. What's going to be the deal with the fences? Right now we have rusted out chain link fences, which I assume belong to Northeastern, old Air Force fences. What is going to be done with the fences, and what is going to be access to the park? Because I know there's security concerns, and one of my fears is that you're going to put up possibly visually impenetrable fences. I don't know what you're going to do. I'd like to hear. Is that real close enough to architecture?
I think the condition that we talked about with the staff was to repair or replace as necessary the fences. I don't think they're for security.
They're
This is not the same level of security as the Costas building. And I don't know who owns those fences, but they are rusted, and I believe we talked about a condition that they, or a note on the plan that they would be repaired or replaced as necessary.
It's an interesting question. If you
Let
visit
me jump in
MIT
and
or
ask a
Harvard,
question there. What do we mean we don't know who owns it? On whose land is the fence?
I'd have to look at it. I believe it's on
Survey
the...
has not been done? Northeastern doesn't know whether or
There's
not
a
they're on?
survey, Jack. There's a survey.
And are
I
the
just
fences
haven't...
on Northeastern side?
Right now, I don't know, I haven't looked at the fence. The fence appears to be on the city of Boston land,
this
but I don't know who owns it.
this
So-
pretty
I've still got
rendering,
a serious question, John, I'm sorry. Have we not done a level of detail and study on that property to know a simple fact like are the fences on your property or not?
Yeah, the survey's been done. I'm just not involved with that aspect of the transaction.
Well, so get somebody who does, but we should know whether or not those fences are yours or not yours.
So, Mr. Chairman, can I?
well, the thing is, hey, at MIT and Harvard don't have fences. The public can walk around their campuses. Costas is a special case. I think it would be lovely if you took down the fences. It would be great for the people that work there. Why don't you take them down? They're uglier than sin. Rusted old fences. The other question we have a sort of semi-answer to is, will the public still be able to use it as a place to park and visit Central Field? Like this family. Oh, by the way, when we were out putting the balloons up to try to figure out how tall the building would look, a family with two little children parked there and came in. So it's not a bizarre, weird thing that I found somebody in the park actually alive. It happens a lot. And it will happen a lot more when the trustees are engaged and they make it super beautiful. Now, I want to know whether or not you're going to let people park and get access. Now, you're going to have to change the thing, because right now, the access to the park is by your dumpster. And that's really a way of saying, excuse me, but our butt is in your face. So,
There's no intent to limit pedestrian access. I don't know about the parking, John.
that would mean you'd have to park down at the ball fields and walk up the field. Yeah, that's
No,
never...
not, well, you can
Where?
park at the soccer fields also, right?
Well, that nobody wants to visit the campus. The thing is, it's a pretty big park. A lot of people have liked, that family that we met 2 Saturdays ago told me that they didn't know that you could park anywhere else. That was the only place they knew you could park. Yeah, you can park at the soccer field and walk anywhere, but it would be nice if you could park at Northeastern. I mean, that's part of, why can't you engage with the park instead of walling it off? Now, I was asked a while ago how the trustees, I have no say about the trustees, how the Friends would feel about a walking trail from this new campus to the Burlington soccer field, so that people could get there and they could go down to the ball. And I said that was great. They had no problem with it. We want people in the park. Now, if it turns out to be a motorized thing, that's a whole different situation. But even if it was wood chip to keep it drier, I don't think the Friends are going to disagree with that. We want people to use the park. I was really quite amazed at the number of places from which you can see the drone cage now. You can see it from the soccer field on Blanchard Road. There's a trail that goes very near, and it's practically overhead. And before that, there was nothing there. And then on the other side, there's a place where we planted a bunch of milkweed, and I was going over the other day, and there, looming in the sky, was the drone cage. So all I'd really have, that's really it. I do feel that some ways that the Friends has failed the park because we did not make it part of the community such that this place would have 300 people, like Nahant did. But you know, a lot of our time was spent fighting attacks on the park. It wasn't that many years ago that the city council, the guy I call the son of the bridge, Josh Sakem, introduced a new amendment to break the lease and sell it. And we stopped all the work we had been doing to try to improve the park and let it sit and rot for 2 years while we fought that, okay? Kristen, you read to the, I went to the meeting where you presented the planning to the planning board, the Master Plan Steering Committee, and one of the things that you read was item number LU7, Master Plan Steering Committee, preserve and enhance open space. We don't have much open space. We got this. And putting a 103,000 square foot, 69-foot tall building on the edge of it, 50 feet in is better than on the plot line, I will grant you that. I thought it was closer. 50 feet is not bad. But it's still a nightmare. And just to repeat, I hate being in this position. I know how much work you've put in. And then to have people make what you think are, in some cases, my suggestions, other suggestions, are stupid, because you've been working on it for 3 years. If you just let us in sooner, none of this would have been necessary. And as I said, my opinion, as probably the most active member of the Friends of Mary Cummings Park, I mow the trails, I put up the signs, I do the website, I do it all. Do everything you're doing. Just move it a little bit further away. That's all I want. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Anyone else on the architectural aspects?
Can I respond just quickly to
Sure.
some of
Hey,
the...
hang on, Ernie. Christian would like to say something.
Well, just to a lot of the comments, I guess, and specifically, I wanted to point to some conditions, but I mean, I think John's absolutely right in terms of the master plan discussions, as well as the park. I mean, the master plan discussions are certainly to preserve, protect, and enhance open spaces and create new open spaces where we can, and even connect open spaces that exist. in Mary Cummings Park, Northeastern happens to sit in the heart of Mary Cummings Park. And, by the actions of the federal government and then by Northeastern purchasing it, that it's where it is, and it's right there in the middle. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure of, and Condition 8 kind of gets to it, and also we've had some discussions with the trustees, and just to really make sure that this dialogue continues between the trustees and the Friends and Northeastern. Especially as, it's funny, probably over a decade ago, kind of probably exactly at the time that you guys were fighting with the City of Boston, and the City of Boston was trying to figure out what, if anything, they could do with the property. I had a gentleman come in my office out of the blue, and he had worked for the City of Boston's Park Commission in the early 60s, and he probably was 90. I mean, he was an older gentleman, and he was so frustrated with the fact that he was the person who took care of this park for the City of Boston, probably the last person who took care of the park. But just the frustrations about, the City of Boston really not keeping it as it should be, as a public pleasure ground for whether it's Burlington or City of Boston or whoever.
I think Mary Cummings didn't say who, she just said the children.
Yeah, and I think, exactly, and I think the town gave this park, the Friends did a great job designating the trails, and the town did a great job building the parking lot and the soccer field, just to say, welcome, it's here, you can come onto the property, and I think that we've come a long way, and the Friends have been a big part of it, of bringing the park really to the public consciousness of its existence, and it's a great place to go. And with that said, I think the trustees taking care of it really add another dimension of the trustees really branding this and working with the Friends to really make this place known in Massachusetts. But one of the things that we have added and we want to encourage, and we've had a lot of conversation with Northeastern, is really ensuring, we can't mandate that everyone be friends, but what we can do is really require and mandate that they meet and they talk and they figure out really how they can coexist together in terms of management in the park and interconnections between Northeastern and the park. And, Northeastern owns the property. They do have rights to the property. You can't say you can't do anything there. How can we do it the best way we can, knowing that certain rights and interests exist on both sides? But anyway, so we have in here indicated kind of mandating that meeting and discussion. In terms of the chain link fence, and I think that it's kind of a symbolic measure of just, I know if there's security reasons for the chain link fence. It's an old rusty chain link fence. But I don't know if any of you remember the old rusty chain link fence at the middle school, but that was like, just get rid of that chain link fence because it was sending this message of, I don't really care about my property or my neighbors, and just a gesture there. So that we at a minimum want them to replace and repair where it's broken, but we really want them to take a look at within the construction area and even beyond, replacing that fence with, whether it's black coated chain link, so it's not just this, this kind of ugly galvanized steel chain link fence, but more symbolically of just how
Galvanized is long since worn off. It's rusty steel.
Yeah, exactly. And there's definitely certain areas of the fence and a large portion of the fence that do sit on this property. Whether every single piece, I don't know.
I'm told that someone just told me that a lot of it is on the...
Yeah, I mean, have some of it fallen over, have some of it moved, who knows? But I think that it is one of the things that we would ask the board to weigh in on, of just, even as a symbolic measure, let's try to improve the fence between the neighbors as a gesture of trying to figure out, how to coexist together within the park. And also, just wanted to bring up, in the trail connections, that, initially the trail, as John Sachs mentioned, the initial trail connections shown were not exactly the trails. But in the decision, they do need to show the trail connections as well as the gates and what the access points are. There's the snow issue at the existing gates, and that this certainly will be resolved with the new snow storage areas. So there won't be any more snow on Mary Cummings Park, as well as the other drainage improvements, which I'm sure we can go through later. But just in general, I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that within the decision, we are writing into it a lot of the things that we can try to encourage continued cooperation between parties.
You use the word mandate for them to meet and get along. I don't know how
To
we
me,
can
I can't mandate people getting
We
along.
can't mandate anything. We can try to find some way to incentivize, but that's going to be a very careful dance that, and I'm not quite sure how we do that, because we're certainly not going to be any part of that subsequent meeting and getting along. We may be invited at the table to listen, but I don't think we're going to have any voice at that table. So if you can come up with some magic language, or if Northeastern can come up with some magic language, I'd love to hear it. And I think the people, friends of Mary Cummings Park, would love to hear it too.